He didn't even ask. That's what broke me. Not the entitlement, not her smug little announcement over my dinner table, but the way my son just sat there, grinning like it was already his. Like I was already gone. They were moving into my beach house. They hadn't told me. They decided. So while they were busy packing their U-Haul and planning curtain colors, I sent him a letter with a crisp $100 bill and a copy of the sale receipt. The house is sold. This should cover your gas back home. He called 99 times. I never picked up. Before we continue, kindly tell us your name and where you're watching from. We'll love give you a shout out in our next video. Please subscribe for more stories like this. Let's dive into the story. I caught it mid-bite. The smell of tomato, basil, and something expensive she couldn't quite cook right filled the room. And then came her voice. Light, flippant, entitled. We're moving in next week. That beach house is basically ours. My fork paused on the way to my mouth. I looked down at the lasagna, her lasagna, and chewed slowly, as if the pasta might give me some context I missed. But I hadn't misheard. She said it casually, like she was talking about a room she'd already decorated in her mind. And my son? He just smiled. He didn't correct her. They were across the table from me. Her blonde hair too perfect for a home-cooked meal, his button-down shirt 2 sizes too tight around his shoulders. They'd been visiting more frequently lately. Long weekends. Always with a new reason. Some holiday I'd forgotten. Some time off they needed to reset. I'd let them stay in the Miami house the last 2 summers. I thought I was being generous, offering a break, a place to breathe, maybe reconnect. I didn't have many things that made me proud anymore, but that house. I built it, paid for it, maintained it after the 2017 storm when the gutters ripped off like paper. The tiles I laid with my own hands. The paint I chose myself, in silence, after their mother passed. And yet here she was, claiming it. Like it was an inheritance they were just collecting early. I already told my sister we're moving, she continued, digging her fork into the salad I made. She's so jealous. My son still didn't say a word. I took a sip of wine. Let the bitterness settle into my jaw. I didn't look up. My fingers curled under the table. The burn started in my stomach. Not anger, not yet. More like a betrayal trying to grow roots. She kept talking. About how she'd hang new curtains. Change the backsplash in the kitchen. It's a little dated, you know? I built that backsplash with my father. In 1989. The last thing we did together before he died. Maybe open it up into the living room, she added. That wall isn't load-bearing, right? And that was it. My silence ended there. That wall kept your husband from falling through the crawl space when he was 8, I said, voice quiet but sharp. Held him up when he flooded the upstairs bathroom. She blinked, confused. Laughed awkwardly. Well, I mean, it's just design, Dad. We'll make it ours. I looked at my son then. Finally. Waited for him to say something. Anything. He just reached for the breadbasket. Later that night, I stood at the sink, washing dishes, letting the water scald my hands while they laughed in the living room. Her laugh rang out loudest. The way she said ours had echoed in my ears all evening. When did I stop being the owner of my own generosity? They left the next morning, with hugs and thanks again, Dad. She kissed my cheek. My son clapped my shoulder like we were teammates. They drove off in their shiny SUV, and I stood in the driveway a long time after, watching their taillights disappear down the hill. I went inside, pulled out the folder where I kept the house documents, and set it on the kitchen table. The mortgage, the deed, the insurance renewals, all of it in my name. Not theirs. They weren't moving in. Not into that house. Not into the one thing I'd built without asking anyone for help. And definitely not without asking me. The Miami house was never a gift. Never promised, never hinted at. Not in a will, not in a drunken Christmas toast, not in the quiet moments after his mother passed. I let them borrow it. That's what it was, borrowed. A soft place to land when their apartment lease got tight or their marriage needed a view to distract from the cracks. But a gift? No, that house came from sacrifice. 28 years ago, I bought the lot with the last of our tax return. I was still working nights then, loading shipping containers at the port and tutoring GED students on Saturdays for extra cash. Sandra thought I was crazy. A beach house? She laughed. Are we suddenly rich? But then she saw the listing and how the sun hit the kitchen tile. She stopped laughing. I refinanced the primary home for the down payment. Took overtime shifts I wasn't supposed to take. My niece still talk about those years when it gets cold. But I wanted a place where our family could stretch out, where we could breathe. A place where birthdays meant something more than paper plates in the backyard. I paid off the mortgage in 2014. No help. No GoFundMe. Just discipline and quiet stubbornness. So no, it wasn't theirs. But I realized after that dinner, after watching them casually strip it from me with their words, that the illusion had already taken hold. She believed it. He believed it. And I think part of me, the exhausted part, maybe wanted to believe it too. That I could just hand something off, be the good dad who gave everything. That I could finally step back. But entitlement doesn't feel like gratitude. It feels like theft wearing a smile. 2 days after they left, I called a realtor I knew from Sandra's book club. Still had her number saved under Janet from spin class. We hadn't spoken since the funeral, but she answered like no time had passed. I asked how the Miami market was. She said hot. I said good. I didn't tell her who I was selling it to avoid. That part wasn't her business. But I made it clear. Quick sale, no drama, no stalling. She could tell from my voice I wasn't playing around. We listed it quietly. No signs on the lawn. I didn't tell anyone. Not my friends. Not my coworkers. Certainly not my son. I wanted it to be mine. All the way through to the final key exchange. It took 11 days. A retired couple from Tampa, Annette and Paul. No kids, just two old folks with matching sun hats and a dream of morning walks and quiet evenings. They cried when they saw the view from the upstairs bedroom. Said it reminded them of their honeymoon spot. They made a fair offer. Lower than I'd hoped, but fast. I took it. I didn't even negotiate. I wanted it gone. The day I signed the papers, I drove to the beach and sat in the sand for 2 hours. No phone. Just me and the ocean that used to feel like freedom, but now felt like weight. The waves were rough that day, pulling hard toward shore, like they were trying to grab something they weren't meant to keep. When I walked into the closing office, Janet was waiting with the papers and a red folder. "You sure about this?" she asked gently. I nodded. She slid the folder toward me. I picked up the pen. My hand didn't shake. That signature, that quiet scribble at the bottom of the page, felt like a sermon. It said, "This was mine. It is not yours. It never was. And now it belongs to people who asked, not assumed." Janet gave me a weak smile, trying not to look too curious. She probably thought I was downsizing. Maybe dying. Who sells a beach house out of nowhere? I took the receipt, folded it neatly, and on my way out, I stopped at a gas station and bought an envelope. A white one. Plain. No return address. The envelope sat on my kitchen counter longer than it needed to. Plain white. No return address. Just his name written in the same handwriting I'd used on permission slips, birthday cards, college tuition checks. I stared at it while the coffee went cold, while the morning light moved across the floor in slow, indifferent increments. I didn't want to do it out of anger. That was important to me. Anger is loud. Sloppy. It makes you explain yourself when you don't owe anyone an explanation. This wasn't anger. This was clarity. I folded the receipt first. The official one. Itemized. Date stamped. Final. The kind of paper that doesn't care how someone feels about it. I slid it into the envelope carefully, like it mattered how it sat. Then the $100 bill. Crisp. New. I'd pulled it from the bank the day before. Not because I wanted to be generous, but because I wanted to be precise. $100 wasn't random. It was intentional. Enough to be insulting if you misunderstood it. Enough to be unmistakable if you didn't. Gas money. That's all it was ever meant to be. I wrote the note last. Took longer than I expected. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I knew what not to say. I didn't mention the dinner. I didn't mention her voice. I didn't mention how small I felt watching my own son nod along while someone else planned my life for me. I wrote, "The beach house is sold. This should cover your gas back home. Receipt enclosed." That was it. No signature. I didn't need one. He'd recognized the pressure of the pen, the spacing, the way I always cross my T's too hard. Some things don't need names. I sealed it, slid it into my coat pocket, and drove to the post office myself. Didn't trust the mailbox. Didn't want to delay. Timing mattered. On the way back, my phone buzzed. A text from him. "We found movers for next weekend. We'll bring boxes." I didn't reply. I didn't block him either. Not yet. Saturday morning came with clouds low and heavy, like Florida was holding its breath. I knew the timing because Janet texted me when the sale officially recorded. "Congratulations," she wrote. "It's done." I stood in my living room for a long time after that, holding my phone, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, waiting for something to break inside me. Nothing did. Around noon, I imagined them pulling up to the house. Her stepping out first, sunglasses already on. That satisfied walk people have when they believe they're arriving somewhere permanent. I imagine the keys not working. The confusion. The first joke must be the humidity. Then the realization. I imagine my son checking his phone, seeing the envelope notification, opening it with one hand while balancing his sense of certainty in the other. I didn't need to be there. I didn't need to watch. By 1:07 p.m., my phone rang. I let it ring. By 1:09 again. Then again. I turned it face down on the table. At 1:22, a text came through. "Dad, call me. Something's wrong." At 1:24, the locks. Then silence. I sat down, took a breath, finished my coffee even though it tasted like regret and old grounds. The phone started again. Calls stacking on calls. Missed notifications piling up like a bad conscience. I didn't feel victorious. I felt steady. By the time the call count hit 23, I turned the ringer off. I thought about all the times I'd answered immediately. Every emergency. Every crisis. Every "can you help us just this once?" I thought about the kitchen table where I'd signed checks without asking questions. The vacations I'd postponed. The repairs I'd delayed. The silence I'd swallowed to keep the peace. Peace, I'd learned, is expensive when you're the only one paying for it. The next message came from her. "This isn't funny." That one made me laugh. Just once. Quietly. Then. "You can't do this." And finally. "We already told people." That one landed differently. Not guilt. Not doubt. Relief. Because it told me everything I needed to know. They hadn't asked because they'd already decided. They hadn't planned because they assumed. And now the assumption had consequences. At 3:46 p.m., my son called again. This time, he left a voicemail. His voice sounded younger. Stripped down. The way it did when he was scared at 13 and pretending not to be. "Dad, please. Just call me. We're here. There's a receipt. I don't understand. She's really upset." I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I listened to it twice. I believed part of him. But belief doesn't undo entitlement. And love doesn't mean erasing consequences. I put the phone down and walked outside. The woods behind my house were quiet, the way they always were. Leaves shifting. Birds arguing over nothing important. A different kind of view than the beach, but one that didn't ask anything of me. That night, I slept better than I had in months. No dreams. No replaying the dinner. No rewriting conversations in my head. Just darkness and rest. The next morning, my phone showed 99 missed calls. I didn't check the voicemail. Some messages don't deserve answers. There's something eerie about a phone that won't stop ringing. It doesn't sound urgent after a while. It sounds mechanical, like a smoke alarm with a dying battery, like something calling out just to hear itself echo. The morning after I mailed the letter, I turned my ringer off. By the next afternoon, I put the whole phone on airplane mode and tossed it into the bottom drawer of my nightstand, under the socks I never wear and the receipts I never throw away. I wasn't hiding. I just didn't feel like performing anymore. Not for people who thought silence meant weakness. Let them talk to my voicemail. I spent that Sunday like any other. Went to the farmer's market. Bought tomatoes and a loaf of bread I didn't need. Stood too long at the stand selling honey, just for the smell. Everything felt sharp and present in a way it hadn't for years. I kept thinking, this is what freedom feels like. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just uninterrupted. Back at home, I did something I hadn't done since Sandra died. I pulled out the old record player. The one she insisted we keep even after CDs took over. I played Otis Redding and sat in her chair by the window, watching the wind mess with the trees. I didn't miss the beach house. I missed who I was when I first bought it. Hopeful, scrappy, trying to build a life with someone who believed in me even when I didn't have the money to back it up. But the house was never the dream. The dream was the family inside it. And that part, well, by the time I turned the phone back on Monday morning, the missed call number read 99. That's the max it displays. Could have been 200, for all I knew. Could have been 1,000. I didn't listen to the voicemails. I just scrolled through the list. My son's name over and over, like a chant or a warning. I did read the texts, though. The early ones were confused. What's going on? Why didn't you tell us? There has to be a mistake. Then they turned angry. This is cruel. You embarrassed us. You're breaking this family apart. That one made me pause. I reread it. You're breaking this family apart. Isn't that something? Not the assumption. The accusation. As if I had the power to undo something they'd already dismantled with their entitlement. As if saying no after decades of yes made me the villain. There were long gaps after that. Hours where neither of them sent anything. Then, like clockwork, they'd return. Please call me. We're still in the city. We don't know where to go. I just don't get why you do this to your own son. That one I almost answered. But I didn't. Because I knew what I'd say. And I wasn't ready to hear myself say it. By Wednesday, the texts slowed. The calls trickled off. I imagined them driving back upstate. The silence between them thick and unfamiliar. No keys to hand over. No new home to decorate. No father to convince. Just $100 and the truth. I went back to work that week like nothing happened. My coworkers didn't ask. I didn't tell. The details didn't belong to anyone else. But I did catch myself standing at the window more, watching birds gather on the fence line, watching shadows shift across the yard like time made visible. The stillness had a weight to it, but it wasn't heavy. It was honest. One night, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. Slanted, uncertain. Still writes his S's like a 5-year-old. Inside was one line. Was I just collateral damage in your fight with her? I read it twice. Then I burned it in the sink. Because this was never a fight. It was a boundary. It was a man, finally realizing he didn't owe his peace to people who couldn't be bothered to earn it. Let them call. Let them write. Let them misunderstand. I wasn't playing defense anymore. Somewhere along the way, I stopped wanting to be understood. I just wanted to be left alone, and to be okay with that. It's been 6 weeks since I mailed the envelope. 4 since the last voicemail. 2 since I blocked their numbers for good. The quiet doesn't feel like punishment anymore. It feels like air finally entering a room that's been sealed shut. I walk more now. There's a trail behind the new house. Nothing fancy, just a worn path between pines and oaks. Moss like carpet, squirrels like clockwork. It's the kind of place where no one expects anything from you. The trees don't care what you've built or who you've disappointed. This house is smaller. 1 story. No ocean view. But it doesn't creak at night. Doesn't carry the echo of conversations I didn't want to have. The walls aren't coated in memory. They're just walls. And that, oddly enough, is comforting. There's no guest room here. That wasn't an accident. No space carved out for visitors who mistake you for a resource. No, just for the weekend space that becomes a season. I tell people I'm simplifying, downsizing. But the truth is, I'm editing. Cutting out the parts of my life that blurred the line between generosity and erasure. I don't regret selling the beach house. I regret how long it took me to understand it was never mine while they believed it was theirs. Because that's what happens when you give without boundary. People start writing their names on things they never built. But that's over now. I keep the receipt in a drawer. Not out of spite. Just as proof. The same way you keep a scar. Not to relive the wound, but to remember the healing. Sometimes, I still think of my son. The way he used to curl into my side after a nightmare. The way he cried when we put our dog down and buried her near the fence at the old place. The way he looked at me at his wedding, like I was still his anchor. Somewhere along the way, that boy learned to stop asking and start expecting. And I don't know if that's my fault, or the world's, or just the way people grow when you love them too softly. But I know this. I can love someone and still protect myself from them. That took me far too long to learn. Now, when I think of family, I don't think of blood. I think of effort, of mutual respect, of people who ask if it's okay before they move their furniture into your life. I've started writing again. Nothing big, just journal entries. Reflections. The kind of things Sandra used to do in the margins of her cookbooks. It helps. Helps me see what I missed. Helps me know what I'll never miss again. One entry just says, "You can't be the foundation and the doormat." Pick one. I reread that one a lot. The other day, someone asked if I missed the ocean. I told them no. Because I don't miss what came with it. The tide of expectation, the constant erosion of myself. I don't miss the noise, the clutter of other people's needs stacked inside my silence. Here, in the woods, things grow slower. But they grow. The peace is different here. It's not dramatic. It doesn't arrive with waves crashing or sunsets, so orange you feel guilty for looking away. No, this peace is earned. Like a breath you forgot to take finally landing in your lungs. And if they ever drive up here, if they ever knock on the door, asking to talk, I won't be cruel. I'll offer them water, a place to sit for a few minutes. I'll listen, but I won't apologize, because I didn't take anything from them. I reclaimed what was already mine, and I've learned, sometimes the quietest revenge is simply living well, far from the noise of people who never said thank you. Now tell me, what's the one thing you've let someone believe they owned, until you finally remembered it was yours?